This is Tell Me a Story, a short one-shot written by myself. Janus! Janus! A voice calls from upstairs, followed by a pounding of footsteps. Seconds later, two small faces peek out from behind the corner. The older of the two was clothed in black and green, marker smudges covering his face from the day's creative ideas, while the other wore a simple black hoodie, his bangs covering his eyes. The more chaotic of the two small sides sprints into the living room, his eyes wild. "We have a question!" Can I be certain that this question is something I would want to answer, Remus?
Well, yeah, this time at least. Actually, it was more Virgil's question, but he was too nervous to ask you, so I helped.
I see. Janus smiles and glances over to the small pair of eyes peeking out from behind the corner. Virgil, what did you want to ask me? The small boy steps out from behind the protection of the wall and fiddles with his fingers a few times before finding the courage to speak. I was thinking that you could, if you want to.
He wants to know if you'll tell us a story,
Remus interrupts, bouncing up and down as Virgil jumps back at the sudden noise. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. A story? Aren't you two a little old for stories?
Please,
Remus begs. All right, what tale shall I share with you? Virgil pulls at his sleeves of his hood and looks to the floor. Could you tell us a story about the light sides? His voice becomes quieter as he utters the words, light sides. It was very uncommon for them to discuss anything about the light sides in their realm, especially considering that entering said realm was frowned upon for sides like Janus, Virgil, and Remus. Virgil watched hesitantly as the older side's face fell slightly, before quickly shifting into its usual smirk. Janus cleared his throat and motioned for Remus and Virgil to sit beside him on the small sofa. Of course I can, though this story is going to be a little different from my others.
Are you finally going to include fight scenes?
Remus jumped atop the light gray cushions.
There better be swords. No, wait. A morning star would be even more awesome.
Ah, yes, there will definitely be weapons in this kind of story. Now sit down properly before you end up falling off the side.
Oh, but
I won't tell you about the light sides if you keep standing atop the couch.
Fine.
Remus sighed and quickly sat back down.
Now tell us a story.
Janus chuckled. All right. Our tale begins long ago, years before either of you even existed. The realms were one rather than a split world, and beauty encompassed even the darkest corners of the Mind Palace. Sparkling waters flowed through the fields and flowers sprouted everywhere, even outside the imagination. In this beautiful realm lived two people, one in charge of self-preservation and the other in charge of selflessness. They rarely spoke to each other, only giving small acknowledgments and quiet hellos when passing. But one day, something changed. The one clothed in a bright blue approached the other, sitting beside him and striking up a conversation. Hours passed, and they still talked happily, not noticing how much time had gone by. Muttering a few goodbyes, they both settled down for the night, excited for when the next interaction would come. Day after day, the charade continued, self-preservation walking alongside selflessness, the singular realm seeming to become even more wondrous as they walked. Countless memories were formed between the two, most of them due to the acts of selflessness. He always knew how to brighten up a room with one smile, and whenever he was around, the one in charge of self-preservation couldn't help but smile back. Each day, they would approach each other, exchanging a flower they had picked from the Mind Palace fields. They would then share words and ideas until it was too late to do so anymore, whispering kind goodbyes each time they had to settle down to sleep. With the gentle presence of the man clothed in blue, life was incredible, and the head of self-preservation yearned for every new day in which he would see his companion once again. He cherished every flower he was given within their small exchanges, placing them within a cedar box, which he kept carefully tucked away at the edge of the realm. Soon, he had a whole collection of petals and stems given to him by the keeper of selflessness, to which he always offered another blossom in return. They grew closer over time, realizing that, though their purposes may differ, they were quite the same. Self-preservation always tried to appear cold and fierce, claiming that he was only participating in kind-hearted activities for the intent of self-care. Though, as the days progressed, he allowed his clever facade to fall. With a new bouquet of flowers in hand, the side clothed in yellow presented them to selflessness, smiling as the caring side excitedly accepted them and began threading them into a crown with which he wore upon his head for the next few days. A bond had truly been formed between the two, and everything was perfect, at least for a while. What do you mean? Did something happen?
You can't just leave us on a cliffhanger like that, Remus protested. First you fill us with a sickly sweet story, and now you're stopping right when we get to the ominous stuff? This is so unfair.
I don't know. I kind of liked that first part, Virgil mumbled. Sure, it was sweet, which is gross, but it's not that bad.
Ooh, Virgil's got a soft spot for flower exchanging. Looks like you're not as angsty as you say you are. I am too, and you're one to talk, butterfly pitier. Hey, that butterfly was hurt. What do you expect me to do? I don't always leave everything to rot. And you said you wouldn't bring that up again.
Quiet down, both of you, Janus interrupted, pushing the two apart before weapons were involved. I'm not going to continue the story unless you behave.
Okay, we're behaving. Now get to the good stuff.
All right. To answer Virgil's question before you two decided to bicker, something did occur. It was a normal morning, and self-preservation had just finished picking the flower he planned to present to the other side for the day. He carried the red tulip in his right hand, excitedly strolling over to the large field where he usually met the side clothed in light blue. Instead of meeting the brown eyes and kind smile that usually accompanied his companion, he saw sorrow within selflessness's eyes. Asking what was wrong, the oncoming answer pierced him like that of a sharpened dagger. A new order had formed within the realm in which one claiming to know all insisted that the good be separated from the bad, in order to create a proficient environment for the mind. Self-preservation pleaded with the keeper of selflessness, asking him for once to disobey what he was told and continue living life like they had together for years, though the side couldn't find the heart to ignore such demanding laws. With nothing left to say, selflessness quickly placed a single white gardenia in the other's hands before disappearing in the fields. That day, the realm split in two by order of the new one, a side who saw everything as black and white with no in-between. Just like that, he was gone before self-preservation could even utter a final goodbye. And though he still cherished the gardenia he had been gifted, he burned the crimson tulip the first chance he could, banishing it from his sights. As for the cedar box, when the dark side realm formed, the box was taken along with it, meaning that I now have it with me. Virgil's eyes widened with interest as this was spoken. Can we see it? I do suppose that would be possible. Janus stood up, strolling to a dark oak cabinet. He retrieved a key from within the folds of his capelet, sliding the brass trinket into the lock and turning it with a click. Reaching into the depths of the dusty wooden shelves, he emerged with a small box. It was a bright white color, yellow accents decorating the edges, and a brass keyhole similar to that of the cabinets placed in the front. Placing the box on the table, Janus retrieved a second item from around his neck. This key appeared much more intricate than the one used to open the cabinet. It had been brushed with layers of gold and a metallic snake wrapped around the base, its tail curled around a shining blue topaz gem. Janus carefully inserted the shining key into the matching clasp, giving it a turn, then returning it to place back around his neck. He lifted the lid, smiling as he felt both Virgil and Remus lean in for a closer look. Inside the cedar walls lay piles of dried flowers, each one flattened so that the petals wouldn't crumble. The white gardenia carefully rested on top. Instantly, memories flooded back into Janus's mind, and tears stunned the back of his eyes, though he didn't dare let them show. Virgil noticed a shift in the deceitful side's eyes, and the way they gained a mournful shine as they glanced at the white gardenia. "Jan, are you okay?" he asked. "Yes, Virgil, I'm fine." "You're lying, aren't you?" "What would give you that indication?" "Self-preservation. The character from the story, that's you. That's why you have the box, isn't it?" "Well, aren't you clever, Stormcloud?" Janus muttered. "It seems you have discovered one of my secrets." He clasped the gardenia in his hand, carefully brushing his fingers across the delicate petals. He was silent for a few moments, his eyes trained on the ground before he spoke, his voice a choked whisper. "It was for the best, anyway. A dark and a light could never be that close." "But it still hurts," Virgil responded, knowing exactly what the older side was thinking. "When he left, you blamed yourself, and you would do anything to get him back. But you know that isn't possible." As Janus heard these words, the tears suddenly trickled freely down his face, and for once, he allowed it. Each memory, each kind thought had been so quickly torn in half that day, and they finally met back together to create a muddled grief that had been held back for too long. Both Virgil and Remus watched as the older side cried, unsure as to what to do. Quietly, they exchanged a nod, and while Remus cautiously removed the gardenia from Janus's palms and placed it on the table, Virgil wrapped his arms around the deceitful side, pulling him into a tight embrace. Together, the three sat in silence, hushed weeping emerging from within the room. Within several hiccups, Janus managed to place a weak smile upon his face. "Out of all the horrors that could have emerged from this place, how was I gifted with such astonishing figments like you two?"
"I wouldn't say astonishing," Remus smiled. "You forget that just today we tried to glue the feathers of a chicken onto a lizard in hopes that it could fly."
Yes, that didn't leave a mess of our kitchen at all. But it doesn't matter anymore. I'm just happy that, even though he left, I still have you two." "And we're glad to have you, Janus," Virgil smiled. "You don't have to worry. Whatever happens, I promise we'll never leave you like selflessness did. After all, us weirdos have to stick together, right?" "Right." This has been Tell Me a Story, a short one-shot written by myself. Thank you so very much for listening, and I will see you next time for another story.